My name is Emily Walsh. I'm 29, and I never expected to find out about my sister's wedding from a mutual friend's Instagram story 2 weeks before the ceremony. If you've ever felt overlooked or betrayed by your own family, leave a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Like this video and subscribe for more stories like this. The post was just a casual boomerang, champagne flutes clinking, a blurred banner behind them with white calligraphy. Claire plus Jordan. Countdown begins. Claire, my younger sister, my parents' perfect daughter, the one who could do no wrong, even when she clearly did. The caption read, "Bridal brunch, can't wait for the big day." And there I was, scrolling in silence, my lunch half-eaten beside me on my desk. Not a call, not a text, not a whisper, not even a pretend excuse. It wasn't just that I wasn't invited. It was the certainty that they'd made that decision together, as a family, and no one thought I'd notice. 2 hours later, I got the call from my Aunt Melanie, who apparently had just realized the silence. "Emily, honey, I thought you were going to be one of the bridesmaids." I swallowed. "No, Aunt Mel, I wasn't even told there was a date." "Oh my God," she whispered. "They said you didn't want to be involved, that you were too busy." That was a lie. Claire hadn't said a word to me in over a month. The last message I'd sent, a congratulations text when she posted the engagement ring, was left on read. That night, I stared at the ceiling fan spinning above me in my small one-bedroom apartment. I wasn't angry, not at first, just hollow. But then I remembered something Claire had said years ago, when she was 16 and dramatic and cruel. "If you're not useful, you're forgettable." That line rang in my ears now. She'd said it when I refused to help her write a college essay, because I had midterms of my own. Useful. That's what I'd been my whole life, the one who edited her resumes. Paid for Mom's root canal, drove Dad to physical therapy after his fall, handled Grandma's hospice bills. But for the wedding, I was invisible. I didn't cry. I wrote down 3 steps, and I was going to follow each one. I didn't start with revenge. I started with remembering. The kind of remembering that stitches itself into your chest late at night. Quiet, bitter memories, like needles threading through old wounds you didn't know were still open. Claire was always the center of attention, the golden child. At 7, she was praised for her confidence when she threw a tantrum and ruined my school play. At 12, she got a laptop for academic excellence, even though I had the higher GPA. I got a pat on the head and secondhand shoes. At 14, I made the volleyball team, and my mom forgot to show up to my first game. She was home helping Claire shop for a birthday outfit. My dad's excuse? She's younger. Let her have her moment. Claire always had her moment. I was just background lighting, and I played my part until I couldn't anymore. When Dad lost his job 3 years ago, I took a second job at a logistics firm to help keep the lights on at home. Claire was finding herself in Europe. I paid the mortgage for 6 months while Mom cried on the phone every Sunday. Claire sent postcards. When Grandma died, I was the one who signed the documents, arranged the funeral, cleaned out her apartment. Claire showed up for 10 minutes, posted a tearful Instagram selfie, and left early because grief makes her anxious. No one said thank you. They just expected it. Useful. Forgettable. The truth is, they stopped seeing me the moment I stopped performing for them. I didn't write the steps down out of anger. I wrote them because it was the only thing that made sense. Step 1, find out where the wedding is being held. Step 2, secure my own booking, not as a guest, but as the host. Step 3, let the truth arrive before I ever do. That weekend, I emailed every major venue in our hometown, and then one of them wrote back, "Yes, the Walsh-Jennings wedding is booked for June 3rd at our secondary ballroom. Are you inquiring about the larger hall you reserved last year?" I blinked. I had no idea I had a reservation until I realized I did, just not for them. Last summer, I'd hosted a charity fundraiser with my boss at the firm. We'd reserved the larger ballroom under my name and paid in advance for a year of potential events. The venue had auto-renewed the agreement, and my name was still on file. Suddenly, the universe handed me something I hadn't dared imagine. Leverage. Not out of spite, but out of silence. Let them walk into their own illusion. Let them hear the truth not from me. but from the place they thought they controlled. Let the venue speak. I didn't make a scene. I didn't march to my parents' front door or blast anyone on social media. I simply called the venue coordinator, confirmed my reservation for the main hall on June 3rd, and requested that no changes be made without my written permission. Then I waited. 3 days later, the first text arrived, from Claire. "Claire, did you do something at the venue?" I stared at it for a full minute before responding. "Me, you'll have to be more specific." She didn't reply. Instead, I got a call from Mom, first in months. "Emily," she said sharply, skipping hello, "what are you doing?" "I'm working," I said calmly. "Why?" she exhaled, exasperated. "The venue says we don't have access to the ballroom we booked. They said it's under your name?" "It is." A pause. Then she snapped. "Why would you do that to your sister? This is her day." "I didn't do anything to her," I said, my voice flat. "You just didn't know what I'd already done for myself." "You're being cruel." I wanted to laugh. Cruel? They'd erased me from my own family, and now I was the villain because their plans collided with my existence? "You didn't even invite me," I said softly. "Not even a text." "We thought you wouldn't want to come," she snapped. "You're always so busy." There it was, that old dismissal, cold, self-justifying. "You mean I'm only useful when you need me," I said, "and invisible the rest of the time." She hung up. The next day, I got a call from the venue. "Hi, Ms. Walsh," the coordinator said nervously. "Claire and Mr. Jennings tried to move their reception to your reserved hall again this morning. We explained, again, that the space is still yours. Do you want us to issue a formal clarification to them?" I paused. "No," I said. "Let them figure it out on their own." On the wedding website, yes, they had one. The RSVP button was still live. Out of curiosity, I clicked. Scrolling through the guest list, I recognized name after name. Family, friends, people who used to call me M and hug me at Christmas. I was nowhere to be found. They had written me out like I was a chapter they regretted. That night, I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror for a long time. I'd spent years hoping they'd change, hoping that one day they'd realize what they'd lost. But what if they never would? What if my only peace was in no longer asking for recognition, and instead creating it? That was the moment I stopped grieving and started planning what would happen next. I didn't need an audience. I just needed a moment that couldn't be denied. The wedding was 2 days away when Claire called again, this time from an unknown number. I picked up, out of curiosity more than anything else. "Why are you doing this?" she said, skipping any greeting. "I'm not doing anything," I said calmly. "You just didn't bother to ask what I'd already done." Her voice shook. "You know, the ballroom fits 200 people. We need that space. Jordan's family is flying in from 3 countries. So am I said, but for a different reason." "You don't even care about family," she snapped. "You just want to ruin mine." That was when I smiled. Not cruelly, just finally. "No, Claire, I just stopped letting mine ruin me." Saturday arrived with clear skies and a quiet kind of tension. I showed up at the venue early, not in a white dress, but in a steel gray tailored suit and soft heels. Not as a guest, but as a host. I greeted the staff, reviewed the catering order, walked the hall that was mine for the day. Because here was the truth. The wedding wasn't the only event planned for June 3rd. Months ago, I'd been organizing a fundraiser for an arts program supporting underserved kids, an initiative I'd launched quietly last year. And on that same Saturday, I'd invited donors, friends, and partners to a private thank you dinner. The main ballroom was mine, not to spite them, but to honor the people who saw me, people who chose me. At 3 p.m., Claire's fiancé Jordan walked into the front entrance, phone in hand, looking confused and increasingly pale. "Excuse me," I heard him tell the concierge. "There must be a mistake. We're supposed to be in the grand hall." The concierge checked the file. "No mistake, sir. That space was reserved over a year ago by Ms. Emily Walsh. You've been confirmed for the lower ballroom, room B." His jaw twitched. "She's not even invited," he muttered. The concierge blinked. "She's the client." And that was it. I didn't come out. I didn't confront them. I simply let the weight of their assumptions fall around them like bricks. They had cut me out so completely that they never even imagined I'd be the one with the key. Later that night, I stood quietly by the window as soft music played in the background. People were laughing, clinking glasses, toasting a cause I'd built from the ground up. And somewhere below, my family was squeezing into a dimmer room with low ceilings and half their guests still confused about what happened. I didn't gloat. I didn't crash their celebration, but I knew without a doubt they'd felt it. For the first time, they'd been forced to reckon with the version of me they refused to see. The one who didn't need their permission. The one who didn't ask to be chosen anymore. I left before the wedding ended, not to make a point, but because I didn't need to see it fall apart to know it had. What mattered wasn't their reaction. It was the quiet shift that followed. 3 days later, I received an email from the venue. Subject line, "Incident follow-up from June 3rd. Apparently, Claire's mother-in-law had made a scene after learning the change of space was permanent, not a clerical error. Guests had complained. A photographer walked out. One of the groomsmen nearly got into a shouting match with staff. The event manager wrote, "We're sorry you were pulled into this, but your professionalism was noted by everyone on our team. Thank you again for your donation event. It was a highlight of the weekend." There it was, a highlight. Their wedding, once the grand, curated spectacle of Claire's Pinterest dreams, had become an afterthought. Meanwhile, my modest dinner had made the newsletter. I didn't reach out to anyone, but one by one people started reaching out to me. A cousin I hadn't spoken to in years sent a message on LinkedIn. "Did I just hear that the fundraiser on Saturday was yours?" I'm honestly stunned. You've always been the one who showed up. Just wanted to say, I see it now. An old neighbor wrote, "If your parents can't recognize what they have in you, I hope someday they realize the loss." Even Aunt Melanie called. "I owe you an apology," she said. I let the silence hang before responding. For what? For assuming you weren't involved. For not asking you what happened. I nodded, even though she couldn't see it. "You deserved better, Emily," she said quietly. You always have." What I didn't expect was the voicemail from my dad. His voice was flat, tight. "Your mom's upset. Claire won't speak to us. She says we embarrassed her. I don't know what you thought you were doing, but this wasn't the way." I replayed it once, then I deleted it, not out of anger, but out of clarity. They weren't upset that I'd done something cruel. They were upset that I'd stopped letting them get away with theirs. I didn't respond to my father's voicemail. I didn't need to. There was nothing left to argue, nothing left to defend. What I did wasn't revenge. It was a boundary, and for the first time in my life, I held it without guilt. The following weekend, I met with the board for the Arts Initiative. Our small nonprofit had quietly grown, and the fundraiser had helped us secure a new donor. One of the guests had been so moved by the story of our mission, she offered to match our funding goal. "Emily," she said as we sat across from each other at a cafe, "you seem like someone who's used to going unnoticed, but doing the most important work anyway." I blinked. She wasn't wrong, and for the first time, I didn't flinch at the truth of it. It's strange, the silence that follows a confrontation you didn't attend. My mother stopped calling. My sister blocked me on everything. I heard from a cousin that Claire's honeymoon was cut short due to some stress-related issues. I didn't ask for details. I didn't need the gossip. I had peace. That was new for me. Not the fragile kind that comes when everyone's temporarily getting along, but the kind that grows when you realize you don't need their validation to exist. I started therapy again, told my story to someone who didn't try to twist it, and slowly I began to make space for the life I was building, one decision at a time. No one could take that from me now, not because they stopped trying, but because I stopped offering it. People say family is everything, but sometimes everything is what you build after you walk away from the people who never chose you. 2 months later, I drove past my parents' house on the way to a community arts gala. The porch light was off, the lawn overgrown. I didn't stop. There was nothing left for me on that street, except the memory of who I used to be when I still thought I had to earn a place at their table. That version of me was gone, and in her place stood someone who no longer asked for a seat. She bought the table, set it herself, and filled the chairs with people who valued her. I got one last message from Claire. It was a screenshot of a meme, something about family betraying you for attention. No caption, no explanation. I didn't respond, because nothing I could say would matter more than what had already happened. I didn't crash her wedding. I didn't sabotage anything. I just existed in a way they couldn't ignore anymore. That was enough. Last week, I walked into the same venue again, not for a confrontation, but to renew our nonprofit's annual partnership. The same concierge smiled as I entered. "Back again, Ms. Walsh?" "Yes," I said. "We're just getting started." This time, I wasn't booking a space in spite of anyone. I was claiming it for everything I'd built, away from their noise, away from their rewrites of who I was allowed to be. I signed the paperwork, shook hands, and walked out, knowing that I no longer lived in the shadows of someone else's spotlight. Have you ever had to walk away from people you once called family? Oh, wait. Drop your story in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories about reclaiming your power. Send this to someone who needs to know they're not alone.